another cold cigarette. I'm not the type, but I'll take a bet. That flame will keep burning on as I go chasing the dawn.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Kinetic Action. I've got an interesting guest today. We're going to be talking about the theories and the philosophy of the Jewish Defense League, why that's necessary nowadays, and the guy who's starting it. But before that, everyone knows you can find my stuff on YouTube, at Halsey English. You can find me on Twitter, at RealHalseyE. Yisro, where can we find you?
On X at, let me pull it up real quick. On X at JDL Brotherhood. Also, www.jdl613brotherhood.com.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the Jewish Defense League was a group founded by Rabbi Meir Kahane, I believe in the 60s or 70s. I forgot which it was. I know he died 68. In 90. So, yeah, 68. Far right-wing national, awesome guy, inspired a lot of people, including me, to want to explore what it meant to be Jewish and what it meant to be a true nationalist. He was real active during the Cold War, like really, really cool stuff. What got you like what's your background? What got you to where you are now?
So I'm actually a convert. I was born Catholic. My family wasn't very religious, even though, they took us to church and I went to CCD and stuff. He was real active. But one of the things like that, I just didn't quite believe it. There was just things that didn't sit right with me and they wouldn't answer my questions. So eventually I dropped it completely in my teenage years. And I always tell people, for a long time, I was the guy yelling at the sky, shaking my fist at the sky, arguing with Hashem. I was very anti-religious, very anti-anything, Bible, whatever. But then I met a Jewish woman and, we got engaged and I went to a few dinners, Passover, Rosh Hashanah, things like that. And I had no idea what was going on. The only thing I knew was Hanukkah from cartoons when I was younger. And that, I didn't know anything. So it was kind of strange, this new thing. And I didn't want to read the Bible. I didn't want to read the Torah at that point, but I wanted to get the basic information. What do Jews believe in? And so I bought Judaism for Dummies, but it's a huge book. All the basics, just kind of explained everything. I read it, during work, during my free time. It's about 300, 400 pages. And I tell you, by the end of that book, I just knew Judaism was for me. And so going forward, I found a rabbi, worked to convert, spent many years, learning and doing all that stuff to convert. And during that period, I came across Rabbi Kahane, a video, and then I started looking into him because I was so fascinated by like this tough, take no shit rabbi, yes, he was super religious and very knowledgeable on religion and pushed faith and Judaism, but he was also like not your typical rabbi. He was tough. He told you like it was, and he didn't, he didn't hide the truth. He wasn't afraid to get William mad or he just didn't care. And that was one thing that really attracted me to him. And I just kind of became obsessed after that. Then after October 7th happened, I got involved with other groups. And they weren't doing enough. They sure maybe go to a few protests or hang out, but there wasn't like a community. There wasn't like JDL, there wasn't anything like that. And so I worked with another Kahane's group for a little while. Things didn't go well, so I left. A few members left with me, and we were discussing things like there needs to be a JDL. Like JDL needs to come back. Nobody else wanted to step up to do it. And I was like, well, I have free time. I'm willing to put in the work. I have the knowledge. And so I, stepped up and started right there. Got in contact with a lot of guys like Lenny Goldberg, Chaim Ben Pesach, Mayor Weinstein, a lot of these, Yucatel, Guzovsky and stuff like that to build connections and also make sure I wasn't stepping on any toes and get advice as well. And it, just kind of went from there. Now JDL 613's a little over a year and a half old, and we're doing fantastic. We have chapters all over the United States. and as well as internationally, and I really can't complain.
So I want to distinguish this just to make sure that YouTube doesn't ding me for violating terms of service. The JDL was designated a terrorist organization by the FBI back in the early 90s, I believe, or it might have been the 80s. I don't remember. But the reason for that is during the Cold War, Mayor Kahana did a lot of attacks against Soviet institutions in America in order to free the Soviet Jews from the Soviet Union. The concepts that we're talking about are not inspiring terrorist attacks or fighting against the Soviet Union. It's talking about the idea of Jewish defense, right? Now, funny enough, I have a very similar background. My father also was raised Catholic, and same thing. He converted to like complete secularism though. Like he didn't do like a real hardcore conversion or whatever. But I grew up like as secular as they come. Like, and the only deal I had with my parents is I would do the bar mitzvah thing, but then I never had to go to a shul again. That was like the deal I made with them, right? And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I read something by Rabbi Kahana. I got really into it, and I said, you know what? Maybe it's time to explore this. And like a whole weird series of events. It was like maybe 4 months before this happened. I was like, I really want to start getting into Judaism and check it out, like see what it's all about. And then my best friend at the time was planning to move to Israel when he graduated college 4 months from this time, right? And he's like, "Oh, you should come to Israel." I was like, "I don't know anything about Israel. I'm not moving to the Middle East. Like, forget it." And about a month later, I said, "You know what? Maybe it's worth it to take a trip. I'll go take a trip over there. I had a really good job. I wasn't even thinking of moving over there." Then he sends me this email. There was this new organization called Nefesh B'Nefesh, right? And they had grants to give to North American Jews to move to Israel, but you had to stay for a minimum of 2 years. And he's like, "Oh, this might be up your alley." I was like, "I told you I'm not moving there. But you know what? I'll fill it out just to see, what my options are. Like, what are the size of the grants and what kind of help do they give you with work or anything?" And I filled it out. And then a month later, they called me up and they said, "We approved you. The flight is in June." It was the first flight they ever did, right? And I was like, "Okay, well, how long do I have before I have to let you know?" And they were like, "By tomorrow. We have like 100 people that are going to take your place if you say no." And I just thought about it for a minute. I was like, "I'll do it." Never been there before, never even thought of it. 2 months later, I'm on a plane to go live in Israel, and I didn't leave for 11 years.
Wow.
So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, look, Israel's amazing. I was lucky enough to go with a group of, I'm very open with my past. I suffered through addiction for many years. I'm now 8 years clean. I attribute me getting clean and sober to Judaism because I tried a bunch of different stuff, just never could get it. I honestly thought I would die as an addict. After discovering Judaism, I was able to totally change my life and do a complete 180. I ended up being able to visit Israel with a group of recovering addicts. I absolutely fell in love. And if I could have stayed, like if I had the opportunity, I would have stayed. It was amazing. Now, I always tell people, like, I've never been the type to say, I felt the vibes of Hashem or really, super spiritual. But I swear, in Israel, on the ground, you can feel Hashem in the dirt, in the walls, in air, in everything. Like, just Israel oozes spirituality,
And even if you're not on I always say, even if you're not on a spiritual path, when you're in Israel, history becomes real. Like, yes. All the things that you grew up like learning about, like Mount Sinai and the temple and all this stuff, it all becomes real. Like, you can go visit where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are actually buried, where Rachel is buried.
Things like Jerusalem really look like you picture it. Maybe looking back in the day, the streets are a lot of the streets are very small. A lot of the streets are very old. A lot of the buildings are very old. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing, and I encourage everybody to visit and make Aliyah. Especially as a Jewish community, we really need to start pushing as many people to do that. I mean, I think even just visiting would change a lot of people's minds. If they have negative feelings towards Israel or whatever, I honestly think it would totally change their minds just being there on the ground.
Well, let's have some fun. Let's what's it called? Let's get away from the Israel aspect because there are plenty of people out there that are going to talk about how awesome it is living in Israel.
Yeah.
What I want to talk about, and I know I've been very involved in this, so I want to see where we overlap, and that's Jewish defense, right? We live in a time where violence has increased, and a community which was usually very skeptical about their own self-defense. Like, yes, every shul has a security guard, and the schools have security guards and things like that, but Jews were very hesitant to take up, their own self-defense. But now more and more people are. I've personally signed like the qualifications for over 200 Jews to go get carry permits. And, like we teach people how to shoot. We teach people, the rules and the laws of carrying, and, how to pick a gun and all of that, how to do proper home defense, all of that. What can the JDL 613 do to help out with that kind of mission of Jewish defense?
So we do very similar stuff. Not only are we pushing, building a community, that's a huge thing that we're doing, is trying to help people, meet like-minded Jews who want to, defend their families, defend their communities, but also train as many Jews as we can, whether it be self-defense, Krav Maga, Kenpo, BJJ, but also encourage as many Jews to get firearms legally. Get their licenses. But, it's one thing to get your license and buy a gun. And a lot of people, it seems, to do that, they don't go any further. We need training. And, you need to understand how to hold your firearm, how to clean it, how to clear your house, what to do, like when you can use it, when you can't, all these, intricacies. And that's one thing that we're, hoping to be able to, do, is encourage as many Jews to get firearms licenses and be able to defend themselves. Because, look, it's one thing, we're pro-police. We love the police, when they actually do their job. And, they really, help the community. But let's say something happens in your home at night. It takes time for them to get there. You only have seconds to react in most situations. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have that firearm, what can you really do? Or if you don't have self-defense training, what can you actually do?
So we also we don't just the people I don't want to say work with, because we don't have an organization, but like we have no problem training like Catholics to defend their churches and homes and all that too. But the one thing we always say, and this isn't unique to Jews, it's unique to humanity, that when something bad happens, like there's a terrorist attack or something like that, everybody wants to get a gun and everybody wants to train. But as soon as that initial fear wears off, everybody just puts it in a drawer and forgets about it, and thinks, I'm safe now because I have a gun in the house. Well, if you're just shooting blindly and missing whoever's trying to kill you, you might as well not have it in the first place. So we really stress the whole train. And we're lucky. We live in a very unique time, because Orthodox Jews tend to congregate around in blue states. Like there's not that many, like red state like Orthodox communities. So up until 2022, I want to say, when Bruin came out, getting a carry permit in most blue states was unheard of. Like you just couldn't do it. Not unless you had like I was able to, but of everyone I knew, I was the only person who was able to do it. Now, every state allows you. There might be some restrictions that suck, or it might be expensive, but you can now get a permit to carry anywhere. Like your shul can organize a self-defense chapter as long as it's like in compliance and all that. And I say that now is the time where people can actually take part in their own self-defense. And it's inspiring people. It really does. Like, I live in an Orthodox community, so building a community is not like the most necessary thing, because our community is already really strong. Like, we're a very connected community. But at the same time, like, if you brought up the idea before 10/7 of Jews carrying guns around the shul and stuff like that, people would have a lot of people would have been skeptical. Like, I don't know if we want that and all of that. Like, At one of the shuls I don't go there anymore, but the shul I used to go to, they organized like a shul watch, like people manned the exits and all of that, just to make sure that no one was doing anything they wouldn't. And they made it like very clear you were not allowed to carry a weapon while you were there. Like and they said, well, don't worry, we'll train you in like self-defense tactics, but you can't carry a weapon. And I was like, so if some guy comes walking up to the door with an AR-15, what am I supposed to do? Kick him in the balls? Like, no. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I wouldn't come here without a weapon regularly. Why would I come here without a weapon if I'm on self-defense duty and then I just quit? You know?
Well, look at this situation that just happened last week or the week before in Idaho, the shooting at In-N-Out. That was stopped. You know, luckily there was a police officer there, but he was shot and he had to move away. But luckily there was someone with a carry permit who had training, lots of training, and knew what to do. And he stopped him, made him need to leave the area so he couldn't continue. Like, that proves all it takes is one person with training and a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, with everything happening in, you know, like around, you know, our Jewish communities, around our shuls, it's just almost like an obvious thing to do, that if Jews are comfortable, like those who are comfortable with, you know, concealed carry and things like that, we need to start doing these things, you know, like, also we need to start, you know, we're highly educated, highly smart people. We need to start using our smarts to make these things better, you know, make better guns, make better training programs, whatever it is, you know, we can really, you know, take what's already out there and make it better for the Jewish community. Because look, I don't know about a lot of people watching. I don't see things getting much better. Sure, they might get a little better, but the way things politically, socially, you know, culturally are going on, you know, happening here in America, I sadly don't see things getting better. And the only answer is you either, you know, make Aliyah, or you need to train in self-defense. Because there's going to come a time, I highly believe, there's going to come a time where we will either have to go through a pogrom or something like that. And we're going to really need to come together as a community and defend ourselves, because there's a huge possibility that the government won't be there for us. You know?
Well,
like,
I'm not a person who thinks the government's ever there for us anyway. Like, I don't have much faith in the government to do anything. Like you said, I don't even, like, am I a fan of the cops? Like, I like that they do some good things sometimes, but like, majoritively cops are there to just fuck up your day and give you a parking ticket.
I always say they're a cleanup crew. A crime happens, they might take a look around. They're a cleanup crew who doesn't actually clean up. You know what I'm saying?
But it's weird because it's and I've been all over the world, and I tell people this all the time when we do Twitter Spaces. We talk about this all the time too. Me and a couple of the guys. I went to school in the South, but my family are deep into American gun culture. We always have been. Like, I grew up with guns. I've been a certified gunsmith since I was old enough to be one. Like, I mean, it's my father is really into firearms. So is my whole family. But I try to explain to people that they don't understand the concept of the American gun culture, and it's impossible to tell them about it. Because it's like people always go, oh, you Americans and your guns. And it's like, it's not about the guns. It's about the responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to be a person that puts the responsibility of keeping my family safe in anyone's hands but my own. You know what I'm saying? And I want my children to have that same mindset. I want them to think like, you know, I always tell this story because it's really funny. My kids go to Orthodox day school, obviously. Right. And my one of my girls, I have 3 girls and 2 boys. And one of my girls, she must have been 9 at the time when Tree of Life happened out in Pittsburgh. So the school had like a big assembly. They brought all the kids in to teach them about stranger danger. And you know, like, if you see something, say something and all of that. So they asked for volunteers. And my little daughter goes, you know, raise her hand. They pull her up on stage. And they said, what would you do if you came in the house and there was a stranger in your house? And she leaned right into the microphone and said, my father would shoot him in the face and feed him to the dogs. You know, like, and then he called me up, funny enough. He wasn't mad, obviously. He's a big gun guy too. But he was telling me about it. And I said, you know, it's funny. I don't recall saying that, but that does sound like something I would say. So, you know, but in the what I was getting at real quick though was that the Jewish community has been hesitant to join American gun culture, right? Like, they look at guns more out of fear than they do out of, you know, like, responsibility. And that's changing. Like, there's, like, I always say that if you want to get someone who's anti-gun into guns, just bring them to a range. You know what I'm saying? Like, most people that think guns are big, scary things, and, like, you know what I'm saying, that the gun's going to come in the middle of the night and attack you. if you bring them to the range and they understand what the responsibility of using a firearm, usually they're a pretty quick convert. It's very rare I've brought someone to a range and they left and were like, oh, that's not for me.
I believe it. I 100% believe it. And also on the story you just told, I'd rather, it's good that your child said that, because that's the better of the situations. Because think about what could happen if you didn't own any firearms and your daughter walks in and there's some stranger. Then you can't do anything. Yeah, you can batter them with your fists or something else, but a firearm changes the situation in your favor, or it equalizes it. You know what I mean? Like, and we just got to smarten up as a community. Like, look, we got to realize that there's far too many people out there. We're outnumbered by the people who hate us, and we really need to take our safety and security into our own hands. Like JDL 613, we want to see everybody. It doesn't matter if you're Orthodox, secular, whatever. We want to see every Jew be able to secure their home, protect their own families by themselves, and then also help the community in return. You know what I mean? Because, like, and also on the whole community thing, in the long run, yes, a lot of Orthodox communities are very tight knit. They have that community.
Right.
You see in a lot of the secular places, a lot of the secular shuls, things like that. They don't have that community. And I've experienced that firsthand. Before I joined Judaism, and being adults, sometimes it's hard to make friends and build relationships. But if we can build a community of like-minded men and women, part of JDL 613, we can support each other. Whether it's an anti-Semitic incident, you just need a buddy to talk to because, your wife's giving you issues or your girlfriend broke up with you, whatever it is. Or we actually need to get together and actually do some actions like securing the community or talking to an anti-Semite, whatever it is, because look, if we're trying to do this thing alone, we can't really make that much of a difference. And let's say something bad does happen in the future, a pogrom, a Holocaust in the West, you ain't going to be able to do much by yourself. So, it's one of the reasons why we have chapters all over the United States. Those people can work together to defend themselves, defend the group, defend their community. Because otherwise, what are you really going to do? You know what I'm saying? And I think
Nothing.
That's is the community aspect of it. Sure, it's one thing to go train and stuff like that, but, I think it's much better. You meet a group of guys, you go to the range, a group of ladies go to the range, stuff like that. I think it just, overall, it's a good experience. And again, I agree with the range thing. It's just so much fun. Like, even, I could even, I couldn't imagine someone going to the range and shooting off and learning and not having fun. I mean, I grew up with firearms myself. I grew up hunting and stuff like that before I became Jewish. And, it's a normal thing for me. But I could understand, someone who maybe didn't grow up with that stuff might be hesitant. But just simply going to a range or taking a course, whatever it is, I think would really open their eyes. You know what I mean?
I think so too. I think it's really important. So, I mean, how does one get in touch with your organization? Just through your Twitter?
Well, they can either message our Twitter, Instagram. We have a blog stuff. They can message us on the website. We usually ask people to email us at jdl613enlist@protonmail.com. That's how we deal with all of our admissions. We have them fill out an application. We do an interview with members, and then we move on from there. So
awesome.
Yeah, and also, you had brought it up in the beginning about YouTube, about the past of JDL. Yes, we are reviving JDL. There's JDL 613, reviving the ideology and the real purpose. But we understand that there's a line we can't cross. I'm not looking to have my members do 20 years in jail. I'm not looking to do life in jail, stuff like that. And also, look, since 9/11, things have changed. Those older tactics, when Kahana was, in the beginning and when they were fighting against the Soviet Union, those things worked back then. You could do those things or plan.
Well, they were like basically they were basically allowed by the U.S. government. Like the CIA was happy you were doing it.
It wasn't just JDL. You had the Weather Underground. You had the Black Panthers doing the same stuff. You had the KKK. All kinds of white groups doing the same thing, left and right. They were all doing the same tactics. But nowadays, we understand those things don't work. It's going to work against us. It might actually work against the Jewish community and Zionism. So we stick. We stay on the side of legality. We don't endorse illegal violence. And people sometimes say, what does that mean? what's illegal violence? Isn't all violence bad? Well, no. Rabbi Kahana would tell you, violence is terrible, but sometimes it's terribly necessary. Like if I get assaulted out in the street, if I kick the crap out of them, that's violence.
Mm-hmm.
But that's necessary violence. That's legal violence. I'm defending myself. We're
Right.
not out there looking to harm people just to harm people or any of that stuff. You know what I mean? A lot of people would say that's what they're about, blah blah blah. But no, like look, the past was a different time. Yes, we are, the same ideology and all that stuff. But again, we understand that, and hopefully this puts people at ease. Sometimes people are afraid. Well, what are they doing? This and that. You don't really have to be afraid. We're not crossing that line. Again, I'm not looking to send my members to jail. I'm not looking to do jail time. I'm willing to do jail time for Judaism and the community. I'm not particularly looking at. No, I'm not going to, do something that's going to force me to do it. You know what I'm saying? So
no, for sure. Okay, I got to run. Sorry, that'd be a little bit of a short show today, but we'll definitely have you back. I'd love to get like you and Apex and a few others together, and we'll all talk together.
Yo, of course, I would love to, man. Would love to.
Okay. So everybody, you know where you can find them, and I'll be uploading this again. It's live on Twitter, it's live on YouTube, and I'll be editing it a little bit, and then we'll be uploading it soon. Take care, everybody. Awesome. Have a great day. And tonight I'm on the Joe Altman Show. It'll be live on Twitter. I'll tweet out the link after we go live, and that's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm sure Iran is going to come up. I'm sure Syria is going to come up, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Take care, everybody.
My fellow Americans, tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border.
In all honesty, a border wall or steel slats won't work. But great bodies of water will separate us from the horrible Mexican rapists. Introducing the 2019 Trump Great Border Moat. Stocked with the most aggressive penis fish, incredible man-eating alligators, and unbelievable genetically modified moose-cocked rape dolphins, as well as flying, migrant-eating sharkfish. So incredible.
I swore to protect our country, and that is what I will always do. So help me God.